Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from Jaguar Land Rover Peoria on Allen Road, offering complimentary pickup and delivery for service with every new vehicle purchase, including the Land Rover Defender. Details at jaguarlandroverpeoria.com. This is WCBU, Peoria Public Radio.
A curator collaboration brings fresh films to the Riverfront Museum. That's just one of the things you'll want to hear about to start your day for Friday, July 19th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, a baby primate celebrates her first birthday at the Peoria Zoo. Director Max Lakes says that River the mandrill was born August 19th of last year. River joined the horde, that's what you call a group of mandrills, first established at the Peoria Zoo more than 10 years ago. Both of River's parents had already been residing there. For a lot of endangered or threatened species, one animal will typically be sent to another zoo temporarily for breeding programs. But Lakes says that mandrills live together for long periods of time in the wild.
They have certain rituals that they go through. I kind of equate it to the rituals that we went through in high school when we were dating. And then as we get into college and all of that, we go through those rituals to find the mate that we are most comfortable with.
Adolescents, however, are a different story. Lakes says that baby River will be sent to live long-term with another horde somewhere between 4 and 7 years old. Lakes says mandrills are classified as vulnerable, heading towards endangered due to habitat loss and human interaction.
That's why we work to try to have the stable population within the zoo so we don't have to touch those wild populations. About the only time that we do touch wild populations if it's so critical that we have to pull them.
Lakes says one time that happened was in the 70s and 80s when the Department of Forestry had to breed black-footed ferrets in captivity to save the species. Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. Peoria Mayor Rita Ali faces at least one challenger in the upcoming April 2025 race. And the Dunlap School District is moving forward with a new $8.5 million athletic training center. You can find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. The Peoria Riverfront Museum's newest film series pairs art from the Fresh exhibition with films selected by guest curator and film scholar Carlos Valladares. On this week's episode of Out and About, WCBU's Jody Holt sits in for Dr. May Gilliland Wright of Arts Partners of Central Illinois to learn more about Frame to Frame Film Meets Art with Valladares and Melody Conrad, the PRM's Assistant Director of Marketing and Communications. You can see the series Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. now through August 18th at the PRM's Giant Screen Theater. Valladares begins by explaining how the collaboration was born.
I started off writing about films. I've been doing it for about 10 years. I was just approached by the folks at the Peoria Riverfront Museum based off of a show that I did in my undergraduate where I paired together films and paintings at Stanford's Anderson Collection, which has some amazing works by Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning. And I was pairing them up with films by Elaine May and Vincent Minnelli. But I actually didn't show the films themselves. I just talked about them on the wall text. So this is a really special opportunity to have the shows aligned with movies that people can see at the Peoria Museum.
I don't think, most of us maybe really consider or think about how visual arts has long informed film and filmmakers. Could you kind of just give us some, quick examples of how this has maybe happened in the past with some of our favorite movies?
I feel like I think of immediately John Ford's films. He was drawing a lot upon paintings and to get his sense of composition, paintings by Winslow Homer, Frederick Remington. And he famously told Steven Spielberg that the trick to a good film is that you have to have the horizon line either at the bottom of the frame or at the top of the frame, but never at the middle, which is then repeated as a kind of aphorism in Spielberg's film The Fabelmans. so much of cinema history is built upon its relationship with paintings.
Melody, I want to come to you. Talk to me a little bit about why the museum finds it important to highlight these conversations about film and, especially with this series that is now bringing art into this larger conversation.
Well, we think of our giant screen theater as another gallery. So it's not just a movie theater, it's also a place where art comes to life. And so what better way to bring that back to the gallery, bring that back to our pieces, than to relate that art that's hanging on the walls to the art that's showing in the theater. Art becomes so vivid and so real and so alive, especially with a film series that's geared towards the fresh, the young, and the exciting.
So, Carlos, there are, so many films that are being showcased. I would love to hear more about what your process was like curating this series, just how you went about making these film and art pairings.
Yeah, well, I went through the catalog of all the works that are in Fresh, the exhibition. There's a Richard Serra drawing that really caught my attention, and sometimes he says like the drawings of certain major artists like Vincent van Gogh or Paul Cézanne or Picasso interest him way more than the actual finished product. And with that, I paired Artaud, his drawing, with two films, a short film and a feature film by Barbara Loden. And she has an amazing short film that we're going to show beforehand called The Boy Who Loved Deer, which she made as a kind of documentary for children. And to me, that's kind of like the sketch. Like that was like her sketch for what was supposed to be a feature film adaptation of The Awakening. And a lot of short films are being played also in this program, and trying to show that a short film can be just as interesting as a feature film. Just like Richard Serra saying, a drawing of Cézanne can be just as interesting, if not more interesting, and revealing of the mind of the artist than the large-scale work.
For more information on the series, visit PeoriaRiverfrontGST.org. You've been listening to Highlights of Out and About, a weekly production of Arts Partners of Central Illinois and WCBU. Listen to the full interview at WCBU.org or subscribe to the podcast.
Support for arts and culture coverage on WCBU comes from PNC Financial Services. PNC is committed to supporting local art and culture events in the communities they serve.
Now, before we let you go, this weekend is River City Pride Fest. That's Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on the Peoria Riverfront. Entry is $5. And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, or Spotify.